Some people will smile at you, praise you, even stand beside you, while secretly believing they are better than you. And the most dangerous part? The people who look down on you are often the ones you trust the most. In this speech, you will discover the hidden signs that reveal silent disrespect before it destroys your confidence, your peace, and your future relationships. One of the clearest signs that someone secretly looks down on you is their inability to genuinely honor your achievements. At first, it may seem subtle. You may even try to excuse it because the behavior is not openly cruel. They may smile when you share good news. They may even congratulate you. But something about their reaction feels emotionally empty, forced, or strangely dismissive. Instead of feeling supported, you walk away feeling smaller than you did before speaking. That feeling matters more than most people realize, because disrespect rarely begins with direct insults. It begins with emotional reduction. It begins when someone slowly teaches you that your victories are not important enough to deserve celebration. When a person respects you, your growth inspires them. They may not fully understand your journey, but they acknowledge the effort behind it. They recognize the courage it took for you to keep going through uncertainty, fear, rejection, exhaustion, and doubt. Genuine respect allows people to celebrate another person without turning the moment into a competition. But insecure people struggle with this deeply. Every achievement you accomplish silently confronts them with their own frustrations, their own unrealized goals, and the uncomfortable feeling that you are becoming stronger while they remain emotionally stuck. Instead of dealing with those emotions honestly, they protect their ego by minimizing your progress. This is why some people always have a reason why your success is not that impressive. If you finally reach a goal you worked toward for years, they immediately focus on how common it is. If you overcome something emotionally difficult, they act as though it was easy. If you build confidence after years of self-doubt, they call you arrogant or say you have changed too much. They never allow your moment to fully exist on its own. They always reduce it, dilute it, or redirect attention away from it. Sometimes they do it through sarcasm, sometimes through silence, sometimes through fake advice that subtly implies you are still not enough. And because their disrespect is hidden beneath ordinary conversation, many people fail to recognize the emotional damage it creates over time. The dangerous part about constant minimization is that it slowly changes the way you see yourself. Human beings naturally seek emotional reflection from the people around them. We look at reactions to understand whether we are valued, appreciated, or respected. When your achievements are repeatedly dismissed, a quiet form of self-doubt begins to grow inside you. You stop feeling proud of yourself. You begin questioning whether your progress truly matters. You hesitate before sharing good news because experience has taught you that your joy will probably be reduced or ignored. Over time, you may even start shrinking your own success to make other people comfortable. You celebrate less. You speak less confidently. You hide your growth because deep down you fear criticism disguised as indifference. What many people do not understand is that emotionally healthy individuals are not threatened by another person's light. In fact, they are energized by it. Secure people can witness someone else succeeding without feeling personally diminished. They understand that another person's progress does not erase their own worth, but individuals who secretly feel superior to others often rely on comparison to maintain their identity. They need to believe they are more intelligent, more capable, more mature, or more important. The moment you begin evolving, that internal hierarchy becomes unstable. Your growth challenges the image they created in their mind about who you are and who they are in relation to you. And because they are unwilling to confront their insecurity honestly, they attempt to restore balance by emotionally reducing your accomplishments. Sometimes this behavior becomes especially noticeable when your success appears in areas where they feel insecure themselves. A person unhappy with their career may suddenly criticize your promotion. Someone struggling emotionally may mock your healing journey. A person who fears being overlooked may dismiss your talents the moment others begin recognizing you. Their reaction is not truly about your achievement. It is about the emotional discomfort your achievement creates inside them. Your progress becomes a mirror they do not want to face. There are also people who minimize your achievements because your confidence threatens the role they assign to you. Some individuals become comfortable seeing others as weaker, less capable, or emotionally dependent. They build relationships where they unconsciously occupy a position of superiority. But when you start growing, succeeding, healing, or discovering your value, the dynamic changes. Suddenly, you are no longer the insecure person they once controlled emotionally. You're becoming independent in thought, identity, and self-worth. For certain people, that transformation feels dangerous because it removes the psychological advantage they quietly enjoyed for years. This is why learning to recognize minimization is so important. Not every criticism comes from wisdom. Not every lack of enthusiasm comes from honesty. Sometimes people reduce your achievements simply because your growth forces them to confront parts of themselves they would rather avoid. One of the most difficult forms of disrespect to identify is subtle condescension, because it rarely arrives in obvious ways. There are no direct insults, no shouting, no open humiliation. Instead, it hides inside tone, facial expressions, pauses, and carefully chosen words that seem harmless on the surface, but slowly communicate one painful message. I believe I am above you. Many people stay in relationships filled with hidden condescension for years because they cannot clearly explain what feels wrong. They only know that after certain conversations, they feel emotionally drained, embarrassed, smaller, or strangely inadequate. That emotional reaction is not accidental. Human beings communicate superiority in ways far deeper than language, and when someone secretly looks down on you, it eventually reveals itself through the way they speak to you. Condescending people often disguise their behavior as patience, intelligence, maturity, or guidance. They may constantly explain simple things you already understand. They may interrupt your thoughts to correct you before you even finish speaking. They may respond to your ideas with subtle amusement, as though your perspective is naive or unimportant. Sometimes they smile while doing it, which makes the behavior even harder to confront. Because when disrespect hides behind politeness, people begin questioning their own instincts. They wonder if they are being too sensitive. They convince themselves they are imagining things. But emotional intelligence begins when you stop ignoring the feeling your spirit experiences around certain people. True respect creates emotional safety inside conversation. When someone values you, they listen with attention. They do not rush to establish dominance. They do not treat every discussion like an opportunity to prove they are smarter, wiser, or more experienced. Respect allows space for mutual exchange. But people who secretly feel superior approach conversations differently. Their goal is not connection. Their goal is positioning. Every interaction becomes an unconscious attempt to reinforce status. They need to feel intellectually above you, emotionally stronger than you, or morally more evolved than you. This need reveals itself through constant correction, patronizing explanations, dismissive laughter, exaggerated sighs, and the subtle habit of treating your opinions as less credible before you even fully express them. One of the clearest signs of condescension is when someone speaks to you differently than they speak to people they admire. Observe carefully how they communicate with individuals they consider powerful, successful, or important. Suddenly, their tone changes. They become attentive, respectful, careful, and engaged. But with you, their energy becomes dismissive or overly instructional. This contrast exposes the truth. Condescending behavior is rarely unconscious kindness. It is often selective superiority. People reveal what they truly think of others through the amount of respect present in their tone. Subtle condescension also appears when someone constantly frames themselves as the authority in every conversation. No matter the subject, they position themselves as more knowledgeable. If you share an experience, they respond with a story proving theirs was greater. If you express pain, they explain why they understand suffering better. If you mention a success, they redirect attention toward their own accomplishments. The conversation quietly becomes centered around maintaining their superiority. Over time, this dynamic becomes emotionally exhausting because you stop feeling seen as an equal human being. Instead, you feel managed, evaluated, or silently ranked beneath them. Another painful aspect of condescension is that it often damages confidence gradually rather than instantly. Open insults can sometimes strengthen people because the hostility is obvious, but subtle superiority works differently. It enters the mind slowly, a sarcastic comment here, a dismissive smile there, a habit of talking over you during group conversations. Tiny moments repeated consistently begin shaping self-perception. Eventually, you may become quieter around them. You may hesitate before speaking because experience has taught you that your thoughts will probably be diminished or corrected. This is how hidden disrespect silently reshapes personalities. People who once felt expressive become guarded. People who once trusted their voice begin doubting their intelligence. Condescending individuals also tend to confuse empathy with weakness because they secretly measure human value through power, status, or control. They struggle to view emotional openness as strength. This is why they may treat your vulnerability with subtle impatience or superiority. Instead of listening with compassion, they analyze you from above as though they are observing someone less emotionally developed. They may offer advice that feels less supportive and more self-glorifying. Even their attempts to help contain an unspoken message that they are wiser, stronger, or more emotionally advanced than you are. What makes this behavior especially harmful is that it often exists inside close relationships. Friends, partners, co-workers, siblings, and even parents may communicate through hidden condescension for years without openly acknowledging it. The relationship appears functional from the outside, yet internally one person constantly occupies the higher emotional position while the other is subtly diminished. This imbalance slowly destroys authenticity because real connection cannot survive where equality does not exist. One of the most confusing experiences in human relationships is dealing with someone who treats you well in public but completely differently in private. Around other people, they appear supportive, respectful, generous, and kind. They compliment you in conversations, praise your abilities, and act as though they deeply value your presence. Anyone observing the relationship from the outside would probably assume they admire and appreciate you, but behind closed doors, the energy changes, their warmth disappears, their tone becomes colder, more dismissive, or emotionally distant. They stop encouraging you. They become sarcastic, critical, impatient, or strangely uninterested in your thoughts and feelings. This contradiction creates emotional confusion because your mind struggles to understand which version of the person is real. The public version gives you hope, while the private version quietly wounds your confidence. People who secretly look down on you often care deeply about appearance and social image. They understand that openly disrespecting others damages how they are perceived, so they learn how to perform kindness when an audience is present. Their respect is not rooted in genuine admiration for you as a person. It is rooted in the desire to appear supportive, emotionally intelligent, or morally superior in front of others. In many cases, these individuals are not trying to protect your dignity. They are protecting their reputation. This is why they become skilled at public affection and private invalidation. They know exactly how to say the right things in social situations while still maintaining emotional control behind the scenes. One of the clearest signs of this behavior is inconsistency. In front of others, they celebrate your achievements, but privately, they minimize them. Publicly, they call you talented, yet alone, they constantly criticize or correct you. Around friends or coworkers, they act attentive and caring. But in private conversations, they dismiss your feelings or make you feel emotionally burdensome. This inconsistency is important because genuine respect remains stable across environments. A person who truly values you does not suddenly lose kindness the moment the audience disappears. Their behavior may naturally shift depending on the situation, but the core respect remains intact whether others are watching or not. This kind of hidden disrespect can become psychologically exhausting because it creates self-doubt. When someone alternates between public admiration and private dismissal, you begin questioning your own perception. You remember the compliments they gave you in front of others, so you wonder if perhaps you are exaggerating the colder behavior you experience privately. Many people stay trapped in unhealthy dynamics because the public version of the relationship constantly invalidates the private pain. Outsiders only see the supportive image, which makes it even harder to explain the emotional reality. Sometimes the person themselves becomes confused, clinging to the public moments as proof that the relationship must still be healthy underneath. What makes this behavior especially manipulative is that public respect often becomes a tool of control. The person knows that occasional praise keeps you emotionally invested. Those moments of approval create hope that things are improving, which makes you tolerate the disrespect that follows in private. Human beings naturally hold on to positive moments, especially in emotionally inconsistent relationships. A single public compliment can temporarily erase weeks of subtle coldness because the mind desperately wants harmony. This cycle creates emotional dependency, where you begin craving small moments of validation from someone who continuously withholds genuine emotional safety. People who only respect you in public are also deeply influenced by social hierarchy. They care about how relationships make them appear rather than how relationships actually feel. This is why they may treat you wonderfully around individuals they want to impress, but become dismissive once the social environment changes. Their kindness becomes performative rather than authentic. They do not ask themselves, how can I genuinely support this person? Instead, they unconsciously ask, how can I look good through this interaction? The relationship becomes part of their image management rather than a space for mutual care and emotional honesty. Another painful aspect of this behavior is the loneliness it creates. You may feel emotionally isolated because the disrespect is so difficult to prove. Since the person behaves well publicly, others may not believe your experience if you speak about it. Friends and family often respond by mentioning how nice or supportive the individual seems. This can make you feel invisible, as though your emotional reality is constantly being erased by appearances. Over time, many people stop expressing their discomfort altogether because they fear sounding ungrateful or dramatic. They remain silent while the relationship slowly damages their self-worth. This pattern becomes even more harmful when it exists inside close personal relationships. A partner who praises you publicly but belittles you privately creates emotional instability. A friend who celebrates you socially but secretly competes with you damages trust. A family member who acts proud of you in front of others yet constantly diminishes you alone creates deep internal conflict. The human nervous system needs consistency to feel safe. When affection and respect only appear under observation, your mind never fully relaxes because you instinctively understand that the kindness is conditional. People who genuinely respect you do not need an audience to treat you with dignity. Their kindness does not disappear when the room becomes quiet. Their support does not depend on who is listening. Real respect exists in private conversations, difficult moments, disagreements, and ordinary interactions where there is nothing to gain socially from being kind. One of the most painful truths a person can discover is that not everyone around them wants to see them succeed. Some people smile at your dreams, encourage your plans, and speak positively about your future. Yet deep inside, they feel uncomfortable whenever you begin rising beyond the version of you they became familiar with. This discomfort often remains hidden until the moment you experience failure, disappointment, heartbreak, or setback. Suddenly, something in their energy changes. They become more engaged, more interested, more emotionally present. The same person who seemed distant during your victories now appears strangely attentive during your struggles. At first, this behavior can be difficult to recognize because they usually disguise it as concern, support, or sympathy. But beneath their comforting words is often a quiet sense of relief. Your pain restores emotional balance for them because your success had begun to threaten the image they carried of themselves in relation to you. Human beings naturally compare themselves to others, especially within close relationships. Friends compare achievements, co-workers compare recognition, family members compare progress, attention, and approval. In emotionally healthy individuals, comparison may exist briefly, but it does not control the relationship. They can celebrate another person's success without feeling personally diminished. However, insecure people experience another person's growth as a threat to their identity. They measure their worth through superiority, status, or control. So when someone around them begins evolving, succeeding, healing, or gaining confidence, they unconsciously feel smaller. Instead of confronting this insecurity honestly, they emotionally protect themselves by finding comfort in your failures. This is why some people react strangely when things go wrong in your life. They may not openly celebrate your pain, but subtle signs begin appearing. They suddenly become curious about details they ignored before. They ask more questions about your problems than they ever asked about your achievements. They seem emotionally energized during your difficult moments in ways that feel unsettling. Some individuals even offer advice with hidden satisfaction underneath it, as though your struggle confirms something they secretly wanted to believe about you all along. Your setback reassures them that you are not truly beyond them. It restores the emotional hierarchy they felt was being threatened by your growth. Sometimes this hidden satisfaction appears through indirect comments disguised as realism or wisdom. After your failure, they may say things like, "I knew it would be difficult," or "That's why I never expected too much." These statements are not designed to support you emotionally, they are designed to subtly re-establish superiority. Instead of helping you rebuild confidence, they reinforce weakness. Their response reveals that part of them feels validated by your struggle because it aligns with the limitations they projected onto you from the beginning. People who secretly enjoy your failures often struggle deeply with unresolved envy. Envy is more complex than simple jealousy because it involves emotional resentment toward qualities, opportunities, or achievements another person possesses. An envious person may admire you outwardly while simultaneously hoping life humbles you inwardly. They become emotionally conflicted by your progress because your success forces them to confront areas where they feel inadequate within themselves. Rather than using that discomfort for self-growth, they unconsciously wait for evidence that you are not as capable, strong, or special as you seem. When setbacks finally happen, they experience emotional relief because your struggle protects them from confronting their own stagnation. One of the most dangerous aspects of these relationships is that the person may not even consciously recognize what they are feeling. Human beings are experts at disguising uncomfortable emotions from themselves. A person may genuinely believe they care about you while still feeling subtle satisfaction when you fail. This emotional contradiction is common among deeply insecure individuals. Their conscious mind may want to support you, but their unresolved insecurity creates hidden emotional reactions they never fully examine. This is why intuition matters so much in relationships. Sometimes your spirit recognizes unhealthy energy long before your mind can logically explain it. There is also a specific kind of person who becomes emotionally dependent on your weakness. They feel important when you struggle because your pain gives them a role to play. They enjoy being the advisor, rescuer, helper, or emotionally stronger figure in the relationship. But when you begin succeeding independently, their sense of purpose weakens. Your confidence removes the imbalance that once gave them psychological comfort. As a result, they unconsciously prefer versions of you that are struggling, uncertain, or emotionally dependent because those versions allow them to maintain control and importance within the relationship. Over time, being surrounded by people who secretly enjoy your failures can become emotionally destructive. You begin sensing that your victories create tension instead of joy. You notice yourself hesitating before sharing good news because experience has taught you that your success may trigger subtle coldness, distance, or criticism. In contrast, your difficult moments seem to attract more emotional attention and engagement. This creates confusion inside the nervous system because healthy relationships should feel safest during both triumph and pain. When support only becomes consistent during your suffering, you slowly begin associating struggle with connection and success with isolation. Emotionally mature people do not need others to fail in order to feel valuable. They are secure enough to celebrate another person's growth without feeling threatened by it. They can witness your happiness without secretly searching for flaws, waiting for collapse, or hoping life proves you are not truly capable. Genuine love, friendship, and respect expand when someone rises. They do not shrink in the presence of another person's light. One of the most subtle yet deeply damaging signs that someone secretly looks down on you is their constant need to compare you to other people. At first, these comparisons may appear harmless or even motivational. They may tell you that someone else is more disciplined, more successful, more confident, more attractive, or more accomplished, pretending that they are simply encouraging you to improve yourself. But over time, the pattern becomes emotionally exhausting because the comparisons are never truly about growth. They are about control. They are about making you feel as though who you are, as you are, is never fully enough. Instead of recognizing your individuality, your strengths, your journey, and your personal progress, they continuously place your worth beside someone else's life and quietly suggest that you are falling behind. Healthy people inspire others without destroying their sense of identity. They may encourage improvement, but they do not use comparison as a weapon. Emotionally mature individuals understand that every human being has a different path, different timing, different struggles, and different gifts. They recognize that growth cannot happen through constant humiliation or emotional pressure. But people who secretly look down on you often rely on comparison because comparison creates insecurity, and insecure people are easier to control emotionally. When someone repeatedly measures your value against others, they slowly weaken your confidence while positioning themselves as the judge of your worth. This behavior can appear in many forms. Sometimes it is direct. They openly say things like, "Why can't you be more like them?" Or, "Look how successful they are at your age." Other times it is more subtle. They constantly praise other people in ways designed to highlight your perceived shortcomings. They bring up someone else's achievements immediately after you share your own progress. They compare your personality, appearance, intelligence, relationships, or life choices to those around you, always leaving you feeling slightly inadequate. No matter how much you improve, the standard keeps moving because the goal was never to help you grow. The goal was to keep you psychologically smaller. One of the reasons this behavior becomes so harmful is because human beings naturally seek belonging and acceptance. From childhood, people learn to evaluate themselves through the reactions of others. When someone consistently compares you unfavorably to other people, it creates a painful internal belief that love and respect must be earned through performance. You begin feeling as though your natural self is insufficient. Instead of appreciating your own qualities, you become obsessed with what you lack. Your attention shifts away from self-development and toward constant self-measurement. You stop asking, am I becoming a healthier version of myself? And start asking, am I finally good enough compared to everyone else? This psychological trap destroys peace because comparison has no ending point. There will always be someone richer, smarter, more attractive, more accomplished, or more admired in certain areas of life. People who secretly look down on you understand this, even if unconsciously. That is why they use comparisons so frequently. It guarantees that you remain emotionally chasing approval instead of standing firmly in your own identity. The more insecure you become, the easier it is for them to maintain emotional superiority within the relationship. Over time, this awareness begins to influence how you interpret your own choices. Decisions are no longer evaluated only by immediate outcomes or personal convenience. There is an additional layer of reflection that considers whether a choice aligns with something deeper within you. Even in simple decisions, there can be a subtle awareness of consequence that extends beyond the present moment. This does not always lead to clarity, but it does create a heightened sense of attentiveness to direction and intention. What makes this experience particularly complex is that the responsibility you feel is not always connected to recognition or validation. It often exists independently of whether others acknowledge it or understand it. In many cases, it becomes stronger in environments where external confirmation is absent. This can create a sense of internal solitude, where the direction you feel compelled toward is not always reinforced by your surroundings. Instead, it is sustained by an internal certainty that does not require external agreement in order to remain active. There is also a psychological depth to this experience that influences how you relate to purpose itself. Purpose is no longer viewed as a single destination or clearly defined achievement, but as an ongoing process of alignment. Rather than waiting for a definitive moment of clarity, you begin to experience purpose as something that unfolds gradually through engagement, reflection, and responsibility toward what feels meaningful in the present. This shifts the focus from seeking external validation of direction to developing internal consistency in how you respond to life. As this awareness deepens, there is often a growing sensitivity to the impact of actions, words, and presence. You begin to recognize that influence does not always come from position or authority, but from subtle interactions and consistent behavior. Even without intention, your presence may affect others in ways that extend beyond immediate observation. This creates a sense of accountability that is not driven by fear of consequence, but by recognition of interconnectedness between personal actions and broader outcomes. This internal responsibility also reshapes how you experience silence and reflection. Moments of solitude are no longer empty or passive, but active spaces where awareness continues to process direction and meaning. In these moments, there is often a sense of ongoing internal dialogue, where questions about alignment and contribution continue to surface without resolution. Rather than seeking immediate answers, there is a gradual acceptance that understanding develops through continued engagement rather than fixed conclusions. There are experiences in human life that cannot be reduced to simple explanations or convenient categories. They do not always announce themselves clearly, Nor do they follow patterns that are easy to predict. Instead, they unfold slowly, shaping perception, refining awareness, and altering the way a person relates to themselves and the world around them. What appears at first as confusion, isolation, or resistance often reveals itself over time as part of a deeper process of inner formation that cannot be rushed or fully controlled. When a person begins to recognize these patterns within their own life, something subtle begins to shift. Struggles that once felt meaningless begin to carry structure. Isolation that once felt like rejection begins to feel like recalibration. Misunderstanding that once felt like failure begins to reveal the limits of perception itself. Even internal restlessness, which once seemed like instability, begins to feel like movement towards something not yet fully visible. The same experiences do not necessarily change in form, but they begin to change in interpretation, and that shift in interpretation becomes the beginning of deeper awareness. This process does not remove difficulty. It does not eliminate uncertainty or simplify complexity. Instead, it changes the relationship a person has with those experiences. What once felt like random suffering begins to feel like a continuous unfolding of internal development. What once felt like contradiction begins to feel like tension that carries direction. In this space, life is no longer experienced as a series of disconnected events, but as a layered process where each experience contributes to something that is still forming. There is also a quiet realization that emerges through this journey, a recognition that not everything meaningful is immediately understood while it is happening. Some experiences only reveal their significance in reflection, after distance has been created, after emotional intensity has softened, and after perspective has expanded. This delayed understanding does not diminish the value of the experience. Instead, it reinforces the idea that growth often operates beneath immediate awareness, shaping perception long before it becomes visible in clarity. At a deeper level, this awareness brings a shift in how a person relates to identity itself. Instead of seeing oneself as fixed or fully defined, there is a growing recognition that identity is continuously shaped through experience, response, and interpretation. What a person is becoming is not always fully accessible in the present moment, yet it is constantly influenced by how they engage with what they are going through. In this sense, life becomes less about arriving at a final definition and more about remaining present within an ongoing process of becoming. And within that process, even uncertainty begins to lose its threatening quality. It becomes part of the structure rather than an interruption of it. What remains is a deeper form of awareness that does not rely on immediate resolution, but continues to observe, adapt, and unfold through every stage of experience.